Good afternoon. Welcome to the 35th Annual Vietnam Veterans Day. A little late this year. It's Norton's fault, so I blame him. Before I say anything, I'd just like all the Afghanistan veterans and Iraq veterans to please raise your hand. See Angela over there. We know how you felt because they abandoned Vietnam too. Your service was not for nothing. It was very important, and you protected us, and we appreciate it. I'll do a quick introduction of one of my lieutenants from Vietnam, Bill Schuller. Where are you? He's a little guy. They had to stretch the thing out, but he was with me in Vietnam. He's the founder of Veterans Matter, Veterans Count in New Hampshire, and administrator of Portsmouth Hospital. Glad you're here, Bill. We will now have the invocation by Pastor Jack Swanson, or as Larry Norton would say, John Carl Swanson.
Very good. How many times we hear that Catholics are great at guilt? Let me tell you something. Protestant, they have nothing on Protestants. I'm supposed to be in Lynn today. Still live in Quincy, but I'm pastoring in Lynn. And Tuesday's my Lynn Day. And I told Tommy I can't do it. And Tommy says, "Oh, that's okay, Jack. We understand. But Larry loved you." So I'm here. So, hour and a half in traffic, pal, for you and for Larry after this one, all right? So anyway, it is an honor to be here. Quincy, I got to tell you, no city, I think, anywhere in this country does a better job in honoring the veteran than Quincy. Let's give ourselves a round of applause there. It is the best of the best. Let's pray together. Father, thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. Bless us as we honor all veterans, specifically the Vietnam and this kid here in the picture. Lord, forever young. Father, bless these proceedings and bless us. And respecting all faiths, I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. By the way, I'm wearing these camouflage utilities and the jungle boots that they actually wore in Vietnam in memory of Larry, because he hated wearing these things. This is it. I will now ask Sergeant Pat Fady from the Quincy Police Department to lead us in the singing of our national anthem. Pat. Go with God. Present. Present.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
for the air support. When Pat's son graduates from Marist University, he's going to be an officer in the United States Army. They couldn't talk him into the Marine Corps. Okay. Mikey Norton, grandson of Larry Norton, will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry, I'm a little short. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job, Mikey. Thank you. If you need any advice on investing, check with Mikey. To say I miss Larry would be a understatement. We had, over the last 35 years, I have this handwriting here of some of the speakers we've had. Clem O'Brien, who worked with us all at the VA. Paul Daly, combat wounded vet, Quincy Fire Department. Paul O'Connell, chief of the fire department, wounded Vietnam vet. John P. Jake Coleman, national commander of the VFW. Bob Brundle, Captain Brundle's brother, Lieutenant Colonel Orson Swindle, United States Marine Corps, POW for 6.5 years. Mr. Joe Galloway, if any of you have seen We Were Soldiers Once and Young, Joe was a correspondent that was in the Igraine Valley and wrote that book. He's an amazing guy. That year we also took the MIA from behind Charlie Bifolchi's name. His remains were recovered and buried at Arlington. I went down with my late wife and my daughter, and she put her MIA bristle on his coffin. Okay, that's enough of that. General Michael Lynch, we had 4 F-15s. Diane Carlson Evans, the founder of the Women's Memorial at the Wall, an Army nurse, incredible person. Captain Richard Stratton, Quincy guy, POW for 6.5 years, one of the toughest men you'll ever meet in your life. We also, that year, we dedicated the POW Monument Memorial at City Hall, and it was an amazing situation, amazing gathering. Paul Calante, United States Navy POW for 6.5 years, was the speaker. Francis J. Bing West, United States Marine Corps Recon, author and advisor to 3 presidents. General Joseph Dunford Jr., 32nd Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps. That year, the mayor also dedicated the Atrium of Honor at North Quincy High School. If you've never been there, you should go and see that. Captain Paul Buca, United States Army, Medal of Honor recipient. G. Patrick Murphy, Corporal, United States Marine Corps, who was appointed as Chief Judge of the Federal Court of East St. Louis. Joe McCain, brother of John McCain, piece of work. Bernie Edelman, from VVA, Vietnam veteran, who was responsible for the HBO special Letters Home from Vietnam. Ned Ram was a flight instructor for Alan Rudno, who took part in a raid at Sante to try to rescue the POWs. Captain George McMahon, United States Marine Corps friend to all of us, who passed this year. The only grunt to ever get the Distinguished Flying Cross. I don't know how he did that one. Father John Gregan, and General Joe Dunford as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. All right, now I'd like to move on and recognize Christine Crigini, our new Director of Veteran Services for the City of Quincy. Christine.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. Before I begin recognizing our state and city officials, I'd like to welcome home and thank our veterans who are here. We cannot right all the wrongs, but we can certainly try. We can do better, we can do more, and together we can do the job. I'd like to acknowledge Senator John Keenan, who is here. Plymouth County Commissioner and Holbrook Town Manager Greg Hanley, District Attorney Michael Morrissey, Council President Noel DeBona, Representative Tacky Chan, Norfolk County Treasurer Michael Bellotti, and School Committee Mr. Frank Santora. Thank you all for coming here today, and thank you for supporting veterans.
All Vietnam veterans, please raise your hand. I want to see you all. Thank you. Welcome home, brother. And 3 of my kids are here today, Matt, Mike and Katie, and 3 of my grandchildren, Jack, Asa Pete, hi Asa Pete, wave here, and Lucy, who just broke her wrist, but she's here somewhere. And my fiance Mary is a beautiful, they call her Beautiful Mary. Our next speaker will be John Magdarelli, Vietnam veteran, Quincy native. He brought to the attention of the mayor and to me that we're missing a name off this clock tower. Staff Sergeant Robert Phillips, who's still missing in action. North Quincy kid who John grew up with. So, without further ado, thank you, John. Come on in.
I'm honored to be here today to dedicate the 50th and hopefully the last name, Bobby Phillips, to be put on this Vietnam memorial. I'd like to thank the City of Quincy, especially Mayor Tom Koch, City Veteran Service Office, Tom Bolander of the Quincy Combat Veterans Association, for keeping alive the memory of our Quincy natives who died in Vietnam. Also, thank you to the O'Connell brothers for constructing this magnificent memorial. Shout out to my classmate Jimmy Vaughn for hunting down and providing a picture of Bobby when he was 20 years old. Again, to all my Vietnam brothers, events like this keep this memory alive. On April 10th, 1970, I was sitting on the tarmac of Ben Hoa Air Base just outside of Saigon. My tour of duty was over, and I was one of the lucky ones to be going home in one piece. I waited patiently to hop on a Freedom Bird for the trip back to the world. And all of a sudden, I saw this soldier walking past me, and I instantly recognized Bobby Phillips. Bobby was one of my best friends in junior high school and my first year at North Quincy High. He was a great kid, fun to be with, full of mischief, and always getting into trouble. Maybe that's why we hit it off so well. Bobby's family moved away from Quincy after his freshman year, and like many relationships during that period, we lost touch. There was no Facebook, no Instagram, no cell phones to keep people connected no matter where they are. Bobby had moved to Ohio and was just finishing up his second tour of duty in Vietnam. He was slated to return home sometime in August and was planning to move back to Quincy. We caught up the best we could in the short time we had and vowed to reconnect once he returned to Quincy. A few months later, the Patriot Ledger reported that Bobby was MIA, missing in action. Bobby had been in Vietnam for almost 2 years. But he told me he had a great assignment. He was a truck driver, and his day usually consisted of driving from Ben Hoa to downtown Saigon to pick up civilian workers who did a lot of the manual labor around the airbase. He would then drive the workers back to Saigon later in the afternoon. In between, he would transport supplies from Ben Hoa to smaller fire bases that rimmed the city. All in all, it was a boring but safe job. I was at a loss to find out any more about what happened. He had no family in the area, and I had no idea where his family was in Ohio. I continued to read the newspapers for any follow-up story that had any more details, but there was nothing. In 1973, when the U.S. left Vietnam and all the prisoners of war came home, I thought I would find Bobby's name among them, but I didn't. Months turned into years, and like so many other veterans, I got on with my life. Went to college, started a career, got married, raised a family, all the time wondering what had happened to Bobby. It's now the mid-90s, and internet had opened up research to levels never before seen. I searched for Bobby's name and military experience, and I find an official Army After Action report that pieces together what had happened to Bobby. As it turns out, Bobby was not MIA. He was a POW. The After Action report indicated that Bobby and 2 other soldiers had an assignment to deliver supplies to a fire base further away from Saigon than the normal route. They could reach the destination in 2 ways. Even though they were told that one road was thought to be mined, the sergeant in charge decided to take that route anyway. So early in the afternoon, Bobby, the sergeant, and the other soldier set out on their journey. About 3 hours later, their truck was ambushed. The 3 men went missing. Many of the details of the After Action report were provided by captured Viet Cong soldiers and the North Vietnamese government. A captured enemy soldier indicated that he was part of the ambush, and one of the GIs, identified as the sergeant, was killed, and the other 2 were taken prisoner. From the accounts, for the next 18 months, Bobby was moved dozens of times throughout South Vietnam and Cambodia, from one prisoner camp to another. Early in his capture, he tried to escape, but the attempt failed. Then one night, after almost a year and a half in captivity, wearing only the clothes he had on when he was captured, Bobby tried to escape again. This time it was successful, and for a short time for him, it had to be frightening. Constantly moving, foraging for food, evading his captors with nothing on but the clothes on his back. Unfortunately, he was soon recaptured, brought back to his prisoner camp, and because of his actions, was executed. His body was never recovered, and to this day, there is still no closure for his family and friends. Well, Bobby, it's been a long time, 52 years, and you're 10,000 miles from Quincy. But welcome home, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John actually has a book out, and sure will be a bestseller someday, about his experiences in Vietnam. Our next speaker is a dear friend who I've come to know, first met in 2005, Bob Brudno. He was our benefactor. Things changed when Bob came here the first time. He suggested you might want to have a square or a park named after each one of these men. And so Larry began. And then it was one a year. And Bob said, you don't have 48 years, so let's get going. So then we did 3 a year. They've all been done. Now we might have to do one for Walter Fabian and for Bobby Phillips. And then we'll be complete. Bob was a lieutenant in the United States Navy, many destroyers. Well, he had trouble with his name, and I'll let him explain that. He served for 2 years at sea on the USS Julius Führer. I don't know what the story of that one is, but he will tell you. Bob is the brother of Captain Alan Brudno, who, as you know, was a POW, one of the first POWs captured, shot down and captured for 7.5 years. Alan was a great American. So, without further ado, my friend Bob Brudno.
Tom and I have had this contest going on ever since I first came here. Who can make it the farthest without getting all blubbery? Neither of us have ever made it all the way through. But the story of my ship, I didn't know he was going to bring that up. He did ask me what was the name of the ship. In the United States Navy, there are great names. There's the John Paul Jones, there's the John Kennedy, there's the Ronald Reagan, the Samuel B. Roberts. And in the Navy, you would refer to them as the Roberts or the Kennedy or the Reagan. So my first ship was the Lloyd Thomas, and we called it the Thomas. I was selected for new construction at Bath Iron Works and became an engineering officer on a guided missile destroyer at the age of 22, and was assigned the Julius A. Führer. That's F-U-R-E-R, no H, folks. I had no choice, and for the entire time that I was on that ship, my mother would call me up and say, Bobby, my cousin wants to know the name of the ship that you're on. So I said, oh, it's the Julius A. And she said, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I said, it's the Julius A. And she said, I still don't understand. I said, well, we call it the JAF. And all I can say is for 2 years, I never said the name. Anyway, it's good to be back here. I first came here in 2005. A year after I had successfully gotten my brother's name added to the Vietnam Memorial. He was denied space on that memorial because of one individual, because of how he died, which was suicide. And PTSD didn't have a name then. And this guy did not like the way he died, and neither did I. So that was an outrage. So one day, a year later, after the dust had settled, I got a call from a Colonel Edwin Murphy, who identified himself as being a member of the Combat Veterans Combined Armed Forces. It was a long name, from Quincy. And he said he had heard about my efforts to get my brother's name on the wall, and was sorry they weren't there to help me, because this is what the Marines do. And he said, we're going to add his name to the memorial and have a ceremony, and I wondered if, we want you to come. And I said, well, Colonel, I'm kind of blitzed. This has been an exhausting effort. Thank you very much for doing that. And you really don't have to do anything. And he said to me, Mr. Brudno, with all due respect, sir, I don't recall asking your permission. I just thought you might want to come. So I came. And I got to tell my brother's story. And the other thing I said, besides the squares, was we need to tell the stories of every one of these, and we have. So I just gathered some thoughts before coming here. There's a new book out. It's called The Hanoi March. It's written by Gary Foster, and it's the first detailed account of a terrifying march of American POWs through the streets of Hanoi in July 1966. In violation of the Geneva Convention, the North Vietnamese allowed thousands of enraged citizens to beat and stone our men as they were forced through a gauntlet towards a soccer stadium where many of them were convinced that they were going to be killed. The book provides a list of the 50 POWs in their order of march. They were shackled together in pairs, forming 2 columns. There were 50 of them. The very first one through, on the left, was my brother. Today, here at the clock tower, there's another list of 50 men, also in 2 columns. At the top, at the left, is my brother's name. The symmetry of these 2 lists struck me immediately. All of these men were brave, honorable, and sacrificed so much for their country. All of them still serve as reminders of the cost of that war, the only one that so cruelly denied those who gave so much, the thanks of a grateful nation. Since 2005, when they added my brother's name to the clock tower, I've been coming back here because this is the place where my family finally was relieved of so much of the years of anger and sadness from the life that we had lost. While the wall in Washington bears the names of all of these men, what was done here matters more and will endure longer. I can't speak for the other families, but I would bet that most of them would say the same. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and your staff, and Tom Belinda, of course, and the many others who organized the gatherings of these over these years. I'll never forget all that Larry Norton did year after year. His family should be proud of him. I'll also never forget the phone calls from Washington in response to a question I asked him. Maybe it was the time of day or maybe what the schedule was. And he would go on for about a half an hour about his gripes with, I don't know, some of you, definitely the politicians. And I always hung up and wondered, why was he telling me that? But he was a force of nature, and we're blessed to have known him. So I thank you all for not letting these men disappear. Long after they're gone, their names will be engraved in granite for those who follow us to remember. There's also another person that I would like to thank, but he passed away suddenly last year, and that was Bernie Edelman from the Vietnam Veterans of America. He came with me from Washington every single year and took pictures and chronicled what happened here. His articles informed veterans organizations across the country of what you have done here. He is missed. While it's important to have told the stories of each of these 50 men, you should also know that what you have done has helped all Vietnam veterans who assemble here. You guys in the back. It took far too long for America to welcome them home. And for those who survive, they can finally hear, thank you for your service. All of the people that I've brought here over the years to these events, former POWs, media correspondents, and many other veterans, they've said the same thing to me. There's no place like Quincy. Thank you.
I always take my breath away. Thank you, Bob. Our next speaker is Taylor Baldwin Keeland. She's been here, the first time she came here, she was pregnant. We toured the USS Salem where her dad served on, and that daughter now was 9 years old. Taylor has written, co-authored, ghostwritten, or edited 18 books, including 2 about Vietnam POWs. Lessons from the Hanoi Hilton, 6 characteristics of high performance teams, and Open Doors, Vietnam POWs 30 years later. She's a former naval officer, 3rd generation of the Navy. They gave us a lot of rides. Taylor was raised in Coronado, California, and Alexandria, Virginia. She spent 20 years in the private sector as a communications professional before starting a writing career. She holds a master's degree in marketing from Northwestern and a bachelor's degree in journalism for USC. That's a pretty impressive resume. She lives in Old Town, Alexandria, with her husband Mike, who paid for dinner last night, and her 9-year-old daughter. I'm privileged to introduce Taylor Keelan.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank Tom Bolander and Mayor Koch for inviting me to speak today. I'm humbled because there's so many much more august speakers who've graced this platform here. You may be wondering why some lady too young to have served in Vietnam and who has no personal or professional connection to Quincy is speaking to you today. As Tom said, I've been coming here for these ceremonies since 2012 when I was visibly pregnant and the boat ride back to Logan was really bumpy. But I was struck then, as I am again today, by the dedication of your town's citizens, the dedication to serve our country, and the dedication to honor and remember that service and sacrifice. But I'm also a storyteller, a chronicler of veterans' experiences, and Quincy's storied history of military service has profoundly moved me. More importantly, how you remember those who have served is unique, one that other towns and cities could emulate, but have not. Last month, I traveled to my little hometown of Coronado, California, in San Diego, where my grandfather, Vice Admiral Ingolf Norman Keeland, was honored with a banner on the main thoroughfare that runs from the bridge to the Naval Air Station on the island. My grandfather was a World War I, World War II, and Korean War veteran who earned the Navy Cross at the Battle of Guadalcanal. But most people around town still remember him because he was the only 97-year-old who rode his motorized scooter in the street with his arm, using his arm as the turn signal. I'm the third generation naval officer in my family and the third generation to call Coronado home. And Granddaddy's banner is one of 12 that line the main artery in Coronado right now. They call it the Avenue of Heroes. And they host a formal ceremony to unveil a dozen of these banners every 6 months. Coronado is a very patriotic place where American flags line the streets, and residents point to the F-18s flying overhead and say, "That's the sound of freedom." I love my island, and I will probably retire there, if Mike agrees. But make no mistake, as proud of my little hometown as I am, Coronado does not hold a candle to Quincy. Coronado faithfully honors all of its hometown boys killed in combat on Memorial Day and at funerals, and we do it well. But it is nothing like what you have done here in Quincy. I'm an outsider here, just a witness to what you do for your veterans, especially those who lost their lives in Vietnam. It is no coincidence that it took a small group of local Vietnam veterans to rally around the families of those lost in that war and to give some added meaning to those lives cut short more than 50 years ago. You, the citizens of Quincy, have chosen to focus on a war that for far too long allowed no heroes. You changed that. I wanted the whole story of this to be chronicled. So I wrote a lengthy feature in the Patriot Ledger 5 years ago. And in the article, I start where it all ended for many of Quincy's veterans. In the old Hancock Cemetery next to City Hall in Quincy Square is a memorial to all who fought on land and sea in America's war for independence. It stands at the entrance to the gated enclave, announcing to visitors that they are entering a hallowed place. With thousands of moss-covered headstones dating back to the 1600s, The cemetery is the final resting place of many Quincy men who served in wars, every war since the nation was founded, and even when Massachusetts was just a colony. But as you drive around this city of 93,000 people, you will also notice memorials to individuals from a much more recent war, Vietnam. Each of the 48, now 50, of the Quincy men killed in the Vietnam War has a memorial. And by honoring each one of these men, not just for how they died, but for how they lived, you, the people of Quincy, have provided catharsis for their families, healing they were never given the chance to have when that controversial war ended. But you also perpetuate the values that make this city such a great one. As Quincy native General Joe Dunford said in 2017, the fact that you would gather for 48 young men who died some 50 years ago is giving a civics lesson to the next generation of those from Quincy. Thank you for inviting me to join you once again today.
Thank you, Taylor. It is now my great honor to introduce the city mayor, Thomas Koch. To say that he is a supporter is an understatement. He is a friend, has been with us every step of the way since he was first elected. And his first question is, what can I do to help you? He does everything for us, and I can't thank him enough. We're lucky to have him for a mayor, the Honorable Thomas P. Koch.
Thank you, Lieutenant Reverend Swanson, my colleagues in government, our distinguished speakers, and our veterans out there. It's a pleasure to be here and remember the 50 names behind us here in this clock tower. I do want to acknowledge Tom O'Connell's here from the O'Connell family. And they not only built it, but they maintain this on a regular basis. Tom, thank you to you and your dad and your uncles. Also want to acknowledge Commissioner Dave Murphy of Natural Resources, who each year they put together and help us set up the event, clean the place up, and certainly provide the sound system, which is a big help here on the waterfront. Thank you, Commissioner Murphy, and to Steve Zambrodo and the team. I've been very fortunate to have worked with Larry and the Lieutenant over the years. And quite frankly, Tom was correct, what can I do? But you couldn't say no to Larry Norton. I mean, you could hear Larry Norton before you saw Larry Norton, as we all know. And to know him is to love him. He actually was a big teddy bear when you got to know him. Larry and Tom have really led the effort for the last 35 years. And that's in all due respect to those that came before them. There were others, including Dick Churchill's, who's here, Joe Brooker, and Ed Murphy has passed a few years back. We certainly appreciate their efforts. But really, if it wasn't for Larry and Tom, this would not happen. And it wasn't just about the names. It was about telling the stories, as Taylor mentioned and Bob mentioned in their remarks. And those squares that are named for those guys are usually in the corner of the street they grew up on. And it's important we continue to tell those stories. I would think that you would probably agree with me that we're living in some crazy times. And I think you'd also probably agree with me that I don't think our young people appreciate the cost of freedom that we enjoy today. Nor do they probably appreciate how wonderful it is to live in this great land. With all its warts, with all its challenges, it's still the greatest country in the world. So, that's right. So today, on behalf of the Grateful City, we want to thank, obviously, Larry. Remember Larry. Not only was he a fixture here, but Larry was involved in every veterans event across the city, ended up emceeing many of them over the years. And I tell you, when I think of a word, when it comes to Larry Norton, the word loyalty comes to me. He was such a loyal guy, loyal to these people right here behind us who had no one advocating for them, loyal to his comrades, loyal to his city, certainly loyal to his family. If Larry Norton was with you politically, that was a big deal. Because he talked about it, and anyone he ran into. Not only talks about it, he twists your arm to support his candidate. So Larry was truly the best. We still miss him. Tommy Belinda not only served his nation in Vietnam as a distinguished Marine, as did Larry, he then went on to serve our Quincy Police Department, rising to lieutenant and serving the citizens of Quincy. And the word I think of with Tommy is dedication. Dedication to his nation and dedication to his community. Transferring those skills and the experiences of being a veteran into that, really running around and keeping us safe in the great city of Quincy. So today we're honored to have 2 benches named in each of their honor. And it's really an honor for me to do it, but I do it on behalf of my colleagues in government, on behalf of the citizens of Quincy, to honor 2 great men, because if it not for them, much of what we see behind us would not have happened. And that's not because people don't mean well, we'll get to it. It's because somebody's got to grab the reins and do it. And they've done that for 35 years. So it's an honor to be here to thank publicly the memory of Larry Norton, and I know his family's here, but also to thank Lieutenant Belinda and honor him with a bench as well. And I know his family is here, proud as well. And at this time, we're going to have Michael Norton come up, talk a little bit about Larry, and then we're going to have Lieutenant Kennedy come up and talk a little bit about Belinda. Mr. Norton.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank Tom Belinda for taking the lead and honoring my dad. I cannot even thank him enough. You gave us another 30 years. I still remember June 1991 when you became part of our family. To Mayor Koch, thank you for your friendship with my dad. I know that's not easy. And to putting together this wonderful event, none of this would be possible without your leadership. Thank you to the Quincy Police Department, the Department of Public Works, the Department of Natural Resources, and Helen Murphy in the Mayor's office for all their assistance. To the Gold Star families, it is said that every day is Memorial Day for a Gold Star family. The void left after losing a loved one is never filled. My dad would be so upset to think we were honoring him today. His response would be, "Why honor me? I came home." It's about the men on the wall. You see, Tom and Dad never wanted praise. They just wanted to help veterans and their families. I can't tell you how many times I would meet someone, I'd introduce myself to them, they would be nice and cordial. Then a few minutes later, the person would come back and say, "Hey, you're Larry's son. Let me tell you what he did for my son, my brother, my uncle." Even if it was just a 5-minute conversation, or actually taking a veteran to enroll in the VA healthcare system for treatment, Dad would always be there. Dad never spoke about those who he would help, other than, "Hey, I met a new friend today," which usually meant taking someone to seek help. He would always say to me, "A veteran took time out of their day to help me. It's the least I can do to help another veteran." Thank you all for being here. Our family is truly honored to be part of this. Please let me introduce Lieutenant Mark Kennedy from the Quincy Police Department.
Good afternoon. It's truly a privilege to stand in front of you all and honor a man that I'm incredibly proud to call my mentor, and more importantly, my friend, Tom Belinda. As it is inscribed on the monument behind me and spoken by a much more famous and eloquent Kennedy, a nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors, the men it remembers. Well, today the city of Quincy is honoring 2 very special men for making it their life's work to ensure that these 50 sons of Quincy will always be remembered. For the past 35 years, Larry, Tom, and their crew have dedicated men and women, some who are here with us today and others I know are here with us in spirit, gathered here at this clock tower in the neighborhoods around the city of Quincy where these men grew up, to stand with their families and remember them. These men, some really just boys, were remembered as childhood friends, high school classmates, football teammates, sons, uncles, brothers, and husbands. This day became more than reading off their names. It became about truly remembering each of them for who they were and what they sacrificed for our nation. It is often said, those who are remembered really never die. Larry and Tom are truly sons of Quincy. Yes, I know Larry was born in Somerville and Tom's a Brockton kid, but thanks to Mayor Cope, they now each own a small piece of property here in Quincy. Tom, like your new neighbors here, you can now start telling people you have a little place in Marina Bay and a beautiful Cape House on the water. It's also fitting that the mayor has dedicated a bench to you. For after 35 years of working tirelessly to ensure that your brothers in arms are never forgotten, you can now sit back and watch the next generation, and the generation after that, continue the important work that you and Larry started. I refer to it as work, but we all know for you and Larry it was truly a labor of love in your way of living your creed of remaining always faithful. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce Vietnam combat veteran, United States Marine Corps Sergeant Tom Belinda, Echo Company, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines.
Thank you, Lieutenant. If I could have Tom come over and join the Norton family, we're going to unveil the Larry Norton bench. Members of the Norton family, you want to gather on the bench? And Michael, at your count. Lieutenant, could I ask you now to come to the opposite side? I'd ask the Belinda family members to join your dad and grandfather as we unveil the bench to Lieutenant Thomas Belinda. We tried to keep it a secret. Tom, did you hear from anybody?
I did not. I would have said, no.
Well, it says in honor, not in memory of Tom Belinda, so we're glad you're still with us, Tom.
Talk about taking your breath away. That was unexpected, undeserved. The volcano over there, Larry, he definitely deserved this, but I'm so humbled and thank you, man. Wow. Got a lot of stuff done there, that's good. It's now my sad duty and great honor to introduce the Gold Star family's president here. If you're standing, raise your hand. If you're not, please stand. Bob and Sheila Brudno, brother and sister-in-law of Keth and Alan Brudno. Bob Puglisi, brother of David Puglisi. Bob, I know you're here. I remember your dear parents. Patty Smith, sister of Peter Gehry, and his nephew Jim. And Vietnam veteran, former Quincy Fire Lieutenant Mike Granahan, brother of John Granahan, and his wife Karen. Thanks for always being here. Wow. Now I'd like to ask my friend, Marine Vietnam veteran, former state police lieutenant. Great guy. Joe Flaherty to come forward and read this poem, which is perfect for these men who are supposed to be honoring instead of me.
It's an honor to be here today. Congratulations to the Belinda and Norton families. They've been great to all of us. Tommy asked me a few weeks ago if I would read a poem. He gave me the poem. He thought it would be difficult to get through it. So of course I agreed. I'd do anything for him as he would for me. Looked the poem up, printed it out, read it 20 times. What I didn't tell him is that I missed poetry class in North Quincy High School. So to break down a poem and to get the meaning of it, but I stood over here off to the side and I heard the meaning of this poem, and it really, and I understand why he didn't want to read it, because it really makes sense now. Reading about remembering and honoring the people that are on this wall behind us, many of them my friends and classmates from North Quincy, or from Quincy. I'm going to read this, and I'd like you all to please keep in mind when you hear the words of this poem, what it really means. And it really is about remembering and honoring the people that are not with us anymore. The author of the poem is Archibald MacLeish. He was a poet laureate, served as a Librarian of Congress, graduated from Yale and Harvard Law School. MacLeish served in World War I as a voluntary ambulance driver, and then later became a captain of field artillery. MacLeish's brother Ken was a naval aviator also in World War I, who was killed in action in Belgium. He received a Navy Cross and is buried at Flanders Field in Belgium. The loss of MacLeish's brother motivated him to write this poem. The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard. They are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night and when the clock counts. They say, we were young. We have died. Remember us. They say, we have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done. They say we have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave. They say our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say whether our lives or our deaths were for peace and a hope for nothing we cannot say, it is you who must say this. They say we leave you our deaths, give them their meaning. Give them an end to the war and a true peace. Give them a victory that ends the war and peace afterwards. Give them meaning. We were young, they say. We have died. Remember us. Thank you very much.
Bob and Dan Curry and John Magnarelli to please come forward. John Magnarelli, obviously, is a Vietnam veteran. Dan, a wounded Vietnam veteran, as is his brother Bob, owner of Curry Hardware. We ask them to present the wreath, please. Color guards, attention. I think that one could go out on behind Larry's bench out there. Oh, behind that, this one right here. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You want this out by that?
Yeah. That'd be great. Bob would read the names, please.
You get that side. You only got one eye. What side do you want to get over? David J. Puglisi. E. Allen Brodno. Thomas Chiminello. George R. Levesque. Robert J. Fay. James H. Kavicki Jr. James A. Stark. David A. Pitts. James F. Murray. Lawrence E. Siro. Gary J. Webb. Peter J. Jerry. Paul B. Rasso. James M. Barry. Ralph W. Caspoli. Martin R. Keefe. Charles L. Bifaki. James J. Jenks, Jr. Alfred B. Schofield. Richard S. Davis, Jr. David F. G. Mega. James M. Walsh. Richard C. Archer. David O. Sullivan. George F. Fell, Jr. Ralph J. Willard. Francois J. Bouillet. Peter J. Landry. Richard D. Walsh. James C. Daigle. Richard D. Slack, Jr. Basil L. Sorello. James P. Hickey. John H. Morgan. Joseph M. Pignato. Leo F. Grady. John P. Coughlin. Richard J. Vasconcelos. Warren C. Diamond. Lawrence A. Grenham. George W. Underwood. Raymond J. West. George A. Nash. James E. Casali. Christopher C. Donahue. Gerard R. Peterson. John W. Granahan. Walter Fabian Jr. and Robert P. Phillips, MIA.
Mr. LaFleur, please sound taps.
Please stand. Oh.
Hold on.
Can you grab that paper? I'll fall on my head.
You sure of it?
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you, Bob, and I didn't catch the Army officer's name who's, you okay, Tommy? Army officer's name who did the echo, but we really appreciate that. To thank the O'Connell family, Tommy O'Connell, I'd like to meet you. I know this was originally, because your brothers loved you, out of respect. To thank the manager of the marina, Hassan Haydar, who has been here for 35 years. He never looks for any kind of attention at all. To say I'm blown away by this honor, Mayor Pope, thanks. I really don't think I deserve it. I know my friend the volcano did, Larry. I miss him. So this concludes our program. I just want to thank everyone for coming. Semper Fidelis for 35 years. Pretty amazing. That's the job.
As it says in the good book, many men die and leave a name for themselves, but many more do not. And it is as if they had never been. Yet they shall be remembered for their acts of fidelity and kindness. So go forth in peace, love one another. As the Lord said, may the Lord watch over thee and me while we are apart one from another. Amen.
Thank you.